light-hearted twist.
I'm Sandra Ezekwesili.
And I'm Oboh.
Join us 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. every weekday.
Right here.
On Hard Facts. On Hard Facts.
Hello, Lagos. Good afternoon. I'm Sandra Ezekwesili, and these are your hard facts.
Shaku Maku! Shaku Maku! I've had to go around the studio. Shaku Maku, everybody, and I am Aghogho Oboh, and it is, I don't know how the weekend was, but it started great, and then all of a sudden everything began to go downhill because of the sort of stories that were coming up.
Yeah.
First, Leah Sharibu having a child. I don't know how people took that, but I mean that really shook me up. And then just before the day went off, one of the greatest guys I've known play basketball game. Even though I wasn't an LA Lakers fan, I was always Chicago Bulls. Had that he died in a crash with his daughter. I mean, up till now, I still think it's the most unbelievable thing to happen in the entire year. So real. So the weekend, it be as it get.
It be as it gets. That's our first hard fact of the day, by the way. The death of American basketball great Kobe Bryant. He and 8 other people died when their helicopter crashed in California yesterday. And it's been so moving to see so many people all over the world seem united in their shock and their grief. The whole internet last night and this morning was just flooded with tributes. Some people are talking about how the game continued because there was a game playing yesterday when news broke of his death. All other games were cancelled, but that particular game continued. And it was sad to see those players crying. Their coaches
it was
crying.
huge. I mean, my younger brother and I, for many years, when we used to watch the NBA games and the playoffs and everything, we just watched Kobe and Shaquille O'Neal, the Lakers, who win one MVP after the other MVP. So we all eventually converted to, because such an amazing talent. When you think it's impossible, Kobe was able to do it all
find
through,
a way.
and find a way all through. The NBA, you get the ring, so you got 5 rings and all of that, and then. The night before, LeBron James, who is considered now in that same mode, overtook him, and there was complimentary messages. And Shaquille playing for LeBron James playing for the LA Lakers, and if I
incidentally, the last message on Kobe's Twitter, the last tweet he tweeted before he died, was a congratulatory message
to LeBron.
James.
So this is the argument in the modern history of the game for the NBA, who's the greatest after Michael Jordan. I would take Kobe Bryant. I can't think of any other person who comes close to what he's achieved in basketball. And the reason why I didn't really was because I was a Michael Jordan fan all the way. But the LA Lakers with Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar way back then. But there's courtside this evening. I was talking with Daniel.
They're going to talk about that a lot. Yes, with Chuma and Daniel. Well, thank you for choosing Hard Facts. Aghogho and I are here every day bringing you the best insights into today's most important topics. We bring them to you, we break them down, we give you the facts so that you can form an informed opinion. And if you missed any of the shows from last week, you can catch online. Go to our Facebook page, Nigeria Info, or our Twitter handle, Nigeria Info FM. We have a great show for you today. We're starting with the big 3, but it's actually a big one today because it's the 18th anniversary of the Armory blast at Ikeja cantonment. We're going to look back at that tragic day. We're going to get your memories of what happened on January 27th, 2002. We're also going to be talking with some of the survivors who were displaced that day, as well as government representatives, to find out what exactly was done to rehabilitate and relocate them. What's happening on Checkpoint today, Aghogho?
Yeah, so on Checkpoint, we're looking at Abulegba pipeline explosion, another explosion in a place where it has become synonymous with this sort of things happening, man-made disaster. And what we do in Nigeria oftentimes is to go back to the communities after the incidents have happened to find out exactly what's going on. So from a security point of view, we'll be having conversations and do just like throw a blanket around this situation and see what is going down. Over the weekend, Maureen Ogolos with the governor as they went to the Gondo resettlement center where you have at least 300 of those people who were affected in that blast stay. And so we'll speak with her and speak with those in the community and talk with a safety expert also to help us understand just what happens next after you've been displaced and your home and business disrupted because of this sort of situation. And that's going to be on Checkpoint from 4 p.m.
All right, and on the big hard fact, we're looking at the Supreme Court judgments in various gubernatorial election petitions. And after the 6 p.m. news, we're going to hand over to Rufai Useni for conversations with Rufai. As usual, throughout the show, we're bringing you the latest updates from the world of news, sports, and entertainment. But let's get started with the big three.
This is the Big Three.
The Big Three on Hard Facts.
On 99.3 Nigeria Info.
You know what to expect on the big three stories that everyone is talking about right now. What are your memories of the Ikeja cantonment blast? Let's get into that particular story. We only have one story. That's the 18th anniversary of the Ikeja cantonment armory disaster. Oh, you were in Lagos in 2002. Can you remember that day?
Ironically, I wasn't in town when it happened. I was in school then, but I came back to face the aftermath and then hear people say things about all that has happened afterwards. As far back as Akura we were in, we did go to the papers the following day and get the reactions. So my folks, we stayed in Festac, and shockingly, the explosions that happened felt the impact all the way in Festac. I mean, you had people say their rooms were shaking. They had to bring down the TV, some smashed glasses, and this happened at Ikeja. But the biggest tragedy, like of course you know, is the people who fled from the scene of that incident, thinking that the state was under attack, and went into the canal at Okeafa at Isolo, where many of them died. The numbers are still being disputed till today, sadly, and unfortunately, we go in year after year. I've had the opportunity to go to where the people who were gotten out from the swamp were laid and see the community how has happened. Sadly, a lot hasn't happened from then. Whether lessons have been learned, we'll find out during the course of the conversation. But let's go ahead.
Yes, indeed. But before we begin, a short reminder of what happened those 18 years ago. On the 27th of January 2002, a fire at the market next door spread into the army base and triggered an explosion in the army, where massive amounts of munitions were being kept. The shockwave from the blast shattered windows as far as 10 kilometers away, and in closer neighborhoods, it knocked down hundreds of buildings, killing scores in the collapsed wreckage. Munitions from the armory flew across the Ikeja sky and rained down as fire and explosions. Thousands of people fled the area for safety. Some of them tried to make it to a nearby banana plantation, but in the dark of night, they didn't realize that, like Aghogho said, they were running into the Okafa canal, which was coated in mud and water hyacinth. It became a watery grave. The fires raged in Ikeja until the next day, and by the time the fire died down, we could count the cost, and more than 1,000 Nigerians had perished in flame, in rubble, in water, and in the blast. It's believed that over 20,000 were rendered homeless. On the show with us today is one of the survivors. But before we introduce you to to that guest, we have somebody who works with an NGO. He's in the studio with us. He works with Innovative Youth Volunteers. Adekoya Shonfumi, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us today.
Good afternoon.
Yes. And then on the phone, we have Ifeoma Ndion. Thank you so much for talking to Nigeria Info.
You're welcome.
Okay. So Ifeoma's family. Okay. What do you remember? How old were you?
I was 3 to 4, and I can remember everything that happened.
Okay.
Because it was on a Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us what you remember.
Well, it was on a Sunday evening, and we just moved to our house that day. I was at home with my little brother and my mom because my dad went out. So we just saw fire everywhere, and people were running towards our house because our house is just close to the canal. the Okiafa Canal, though we stay in Ajawa Estate.
Mm.
So everybody was running, and we were running with them. We never knew the waterbed. Beneath it, there was a whole lot of water there, canal. We thought it was just a road you can just cross over to Okiafa.
Mm.
Then we went to the water, and everybody died. My brother died, but my mom survived, and I was the only baby who survived. So since then, things have been very, very hard for everybody, the victims. We've not heard from the government, and we don't know what to do.
First of all, I would like to offer my condolences about the death of your brother and all the other people who died in that water. How long after that incident did you hear from government?
I haven't heard from them. There's this meeting that was going on after that incident. My dad do attend the meeting. Obasanjo was the president then. They were like, they were going to compensate us. I was even asked to write one exam at Unilag to narrate how the story went, to be sure I was really a victim. I wrote the exam. So since then, we did not hear anything from anyone till now.
So did they add you to some list? Did they add you to any type of association? Because the government promised compensation. Was there a way that they were planning to keep track of you?
There was no way at all. The meeting just crashed like that. There was no way to reach us. We can't reach the government. Everybody just went silent over the case, because for over 2 years, they were really, really going about the meeting, trying to meet up with the present governor then, but everything just crashed.
Are you still in contact with the other people who were affected?
Not at all. I'm the only person that has been going on Instagram trying to reach out to other people, but nobody has contacted me yet.
Really unfortunate, and once again, really sorry about that. So, have you had the opportunity to go back to where this happened over the years to, see what it's like?
I still live there. Like right now, I'm still there. I live there.
You're still great. So, what sort of conversations do you have with the neighbors, the people who came back after the incident? What do they say? Yeah.
Well, the people who came back after the incident, they don't know about the incident. They don't live in this area.
Oh, right.
We are the oldest people. Yeah, we can't live here because this was where my dad got his land. Though they've demolished the house, because they had to chase everyone out of the area because of what happened.
Good.
But there's still a little place where my dad had to build a little place for us to just stay.
Some years ago there was the clamor for a bridge to be built because the argument then was that if you had that bridge there would be no way. That's the bridge which will link you from the canal to Aghogho Estate.
Yeah.
Yes.
We are the back of the bridge.
Good. So has
I
that?
know the bridge.
Yes. And I mean, if that bridge, well, for traffic, even for traffic sense, it does make a lot of sense. How much more for safety? So do you have a bridge there now?
There's a bridge from Aghogho to Okiafa.
Good.
Now.
Okay, there's a bridge from Okiafa to okay. When was that bridge put up?
And that was 2016, 2014.
Okay.
But to be clear, up until now, there's no government office that you coordinate with. There's no update from any government office, both local and federal?
Not at all. Just 2018, when I first posted this incident, and someone reached out to me saying he's from Atiku personally, not in the form of government. And that was when he was running for the presidential election.
Okay.
Yes, so he personally reached out to me, but it wasn't what we expected. I don't know if it's because he did not win. I don't know if what I'm saying is right or wrong. But from the government, I haven't heard from anybody. Neither has my parents heard.
All right. Ifeoma Ndoyema, thank you so much for talking to us on Hard Facts. We're going to keep in touch with you. We're going to keep following this story.
Okay, thank you.
All right, then. When we come back from this break, let's talk with Adekoya Shionfumi, who is a volunteer with the Innovative Youth Volunteers. You know, in the aftermath of this explosion, questions were asked, right? And it turned out that there'd been an explosion in a cantonment a year before, and that the local authorities had advised the army to relocate the munitions in the armory. They never did. The army eventually apologized for the loss of life. Also, in the aftermath, promises were given. The federal government vowed to help resettle the affected residents. It promised to provide them with compensation and accommodation. But the past 18 years have been a retelling of the same story we've heard before. Claims of non-payment and delayed payments, and with some victims descending into poverty and ruin. So today on The Big Three, let's have those conversations with our guest who is a volunteer at the Innovative Youth Volunteers. I'm Sandra Ezekwesili.
I'm Aghogho Oboh.
Stay right here on The Big Three on 99.3 Nigeria Info. This is The Big Three.
The Big Three on Hard Facts
On 99.3 Nigeria Info.
And Lagos, we're back. Sandra Ezekwesili, that's my name.
And I'm Aghogho Oboh.
We have on the show with us a volunteer with Innovative Youth Volunteers, Adekoya Shionfumi. Mr. Shionfumi, according to victims groups, there were 154 affected families, but only 70 of them have received a payment from the Lagos state government, a payment of 250,000 naira each. Do you know why the remaining 84 have received nothing?
I think first of all, I need to make this very clear. The present state of the victim's family, particularly, is an indication of the kind of dislocation of our values and culture as a nation.
Okay.
When talking to some of the victims this morning, I was live at the location, and we have the chairman of the victims' families. He actually lost 2 children in that particular incident on that very sad day.
Right.
Mr. Tunji Majakodumi. One was 3 months old, and the other was 8 years old. And while he was retelling most of this gory incident that very day, he said he thought the government will come in and take care of all of them. There are very few. But unfortunately, like you said, the remaining about 80 people, 80 families were not taken care of. I mean, I don't know what the federal government promised them, but that was the relief the Lagos state government actually paid. The Lagos state paid about 250,000 to some of the victims, not all of them. They didn't capture the whole family.
Which is a problem because we don't even. First of all, there's controversy over the number of people who died in the first instance.
Yes.
There's controversy over how many people were affected. Those who were in the cantonment, those who were outside. Most of them who got affected were even those outside the cantonment. We're not even talking about the soldiers themselves. So the fact that we haven't been able to capture how many people were involved on that day is a huge problem. Saying this is going forward, how many people were even going to compensate?
In Hull, we have about 1,500 victims that were affected. Some of them died, some of them displaced. You know, so in Hull we have about 1,500. Immediate environment, the soldiers, we have about 300 people that actually died in that incident, in that immediate environment that very day. But due to panic, you know, outside the cantonment, because from 30 miles away, I'm talking about the Ikeja cantonment and people who live far away in Ejigbo, Isolo, and all those suburb end areas, 30 miles distance, and the effect of the bomb blast was so shattering that you will feel it's like an atomic bomb that had been detonated at the back of your house. So everybody was taken to their heels. So there were so many people that were displaced. Some they were never found till this day. So in Hull we have about 1,500 situations, very few that are actually being taken care of by the government, and those were the challenges of the present victims' family. As you can hear from one of the survivors today, you know, it's a pathetic situation. So what we are doing as a volunteer group is to bring these families together. The chairman of the victims' family was at the location this morning. We held a short program to remember the families, and in speaking to LTV Live, he told the government that all they want is for a program for some of these victims that are surviving. They've been able to leave the memory of the past, their loved ones that they've lost, but some of them cannot survive on their own. Some of them, their house have been taken away from them by that unfortunate incident, and nothing, and they can make reference to.
Is there any improvement in terms of the neighborhood? Because I've been there a couple of times, and what is shocking is the fact that you had this happen there, but the overall outlook of the place, I mean, is dilapidated. You have shacks here and there. The only thing you know something happened there is just a memorial saying this is where people from the munitions depot, you know, fell in here and that sort of thing. And then even then, that was also dilapidated until I think it was the governor then Fashola who did put up another one. Well, what was the general state of living there?
The environment is pathetic as I speak with you.
Yeah, I saw a video of where Ifeoma lives with her family, and it wasn't looking good.
The canal, as I speak to you, it's as filled with hyacinths and weeds. You practically feel like walking across it, but you will never know it's a canal. You understand? So those were the most pathetic thing we still talk about today, 18 years down the line. The government are not responsive. About a few months ago, we have one of the representative of Vishal of Federal Constituency, in the person of Honorable Ganiu Abiodun Johnson, who was in the House, was raising an emotion to tell the speaker that they should dredge the Okeafa canal in order to prevent another disaster. We don't know what might happen in the next minute. People, imagine it happened in the night. People they don't see what happened. So it's just to prevent further occurrence, future occurrence. So we cannot have the same mistake again.
Exactly. I have to mention at this point that we were expecting a one-time LCDA chairman, Kehinde Gbamgbeta, on the show. Unfortunately, his phone is switched off. He did agree to speak with me on air. We started calling him while the conversation was ongoing. It rang. Now the number is switched off. And I wanted to ask him questions about what happened when he was chairman, you know, because the blast happened before his time as local government chairman. But when he took over office, in what state did he meet the victims, for instance? What was the official policy of local or state or federal government, respectively, towards the victims of the blast? We also tried to get in touch with the current chairman of Ejigbo. We tried to get in touch with the chairman of Isolo as well. But for some reason, all their numbers were switched off. I don't know if it's the day or if it's just my number having network issues, but we were not able to reach these government officials. And to be honest, they are the ones who have the big answers to the questions that we may have about what's going to happen with these families. So many of those affected became displaced and homeless or ended up as squatters in unofficial housing of various sorts. Now, Adekoya, we've seen in recent years that the government at federal, state, and local level seem to be in an ongoing war with squatters and shanty dwellers. We recently saw the example in Takwa Bay. We also saw Toto Bame some years back. But does the story of Ikeja cantonment not tell us that some of these people are forced into these living conditions because of severe problems which government fails to solve?
You're very correct. I think as a nation, we are facing a bigger problem because our population is growing sporadically every day. You can reason with me that the number of youth with unemployment increases every day. After school, you are supposed to have your family, start your new life, but when you can get a job, how are you going to do that? So obviously, we are having increased population with very little fundamental government initiative that should come in, like the housing initiative that should be a succor to the younger generation. So these are the challenges we have. Well, with urbanization taking effect on a state like Lagos, that there is bound to be government coming in and say, okay, we want to renew this this location, we want to rebrand it, we want to make it a good city, but we have to consider those that are living there.
I mean, the jury is going to be out on exactly how the resettlement has happened for these people. As far back as my mind can remember, say for the Maroko demolition, where people were resettled, and even in questionable circumstances, as we speak, the people who were staying in Morocco and some abandoned building along the Lekki-Ekpe Expressway, and every other day they're still being threatened, even though they're staying in uncompleted buildings along the Jakonde estate and over and forward. So many times it's never happened in their favor when you're removed from any so-called place in the name of public interest, whether you're going to get any favor from the government. And some other thing, Sandra was talking about, which got me thinking too, is just exactly the role of government. I mean, this was Lagos State just after the handover to the Fourth Republic. So we're just learning some things then, whether we've learned any lessons. And I remember very well, people were very angry in the response of the government to this incident. First, in not putting out information early enough to calm the state. I mean, for several hours, we had no idea what was happening.
What was going on?
It took the former governor then, Bola Tinubu, to come on air with a military commander to say, there is no coup happening. What is going on is blah, 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 munition depot that's happened. And even Olusegun Obasanjo, the president, came in there. Rather than even bringing more sympathy, there was more anger over the sort of things he said, especially to the soldiers who were very upset over how the whole thing had played out. But what do you say in terms of, first, the resettlement plans for people in terms of government sincerity? When you mentioned Bami Breton, who was in office even after as commissioner, I think with Akim Miambode as a commissioner twice, information and some other portfolio, how people can trust the government to be able to do what they're supposed to do. Has there been any change from your working on the field?
What we just want to do practically is to appeal to Nigerians, because we feel everybody have right to education. Some of these victims, their children, they can't afford to go to school.
And that's a quick win, right?
Yes. And so what we've been doing is to document those families that they are victims' family between the ages of 3 to like 16, those who are supposed to get good education, because one of our major problem as a nation is education. We need to educate our youth effectively. So once we're able to document that, then we'll begin to, because we're targeting the 20th, before the 20th celebration, we want to make sure that all the families lives are touched,
In some
whether
way.
by the government or by the Nigerian people.
28 years, that's next year. That's
Yeah,
just next year.
Yes.
No, that's in 2 years.
This
is the 18th year.
Yes, this is 18th
Ah,
year.
yes, that's in 2 years.
That's 2021.
2020,
So you can
21,
imagine
22. This
Yeah.
is 2020.
it's 2020,
Yeah.
2022.
So it's
2022.
2022.
So in 20 years, we want to, if we have not done anything from 1 to 18, I mean, from 1 to 2, we
Let's
can,
try to do.
if some people come in the gap, and that's what we're actually doing. We're actually meeting the victim family. It's unfortunate we have not been able to get across to one of the victims that spoke. The reason why we're targeting the major victims are those who lost 3 kids, 4 kids. They are the one most affected. You know, those are the one we actually call out this morning to speak with some of the TV stations that were there. You know, what we're trying to do is to document these few people so that whatever the response is coming from the government, it can go to the appropriate channel.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we want to do.
Now let's talk to you. What do you remember about 27th January 2002? Were you in Ikeja to witness the disaster? Were you personally affected by it? Do you know people who were? Or were you following the coverage in the media? What do you know about the plight of the victims or the effort to get compensation for them? 01277 0993 01277 1993, 01277 2993, and 01277 3993. Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, Sandra, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Afternoon.
Yeah, Chief Oboh.
Good afternoon.
Shaku Marku.
Makushi.
Yeah, the girls there, I want to say thank you. Sandra, I remember that day at Ijesha Sedo.
Okay.
People in my area were running towards the relay, but I didn't run. My kids were small then, but all I did, I bring them outside, and I said, look, let's watch where this thing is coming from before we start run. So I didn't run with those who were running, right? Then I remember that canal. There's one young man that rescued one pregnant woman. Yes, one young man. He jumped into the canal and bring that woman out. And that day, I watched the president then, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, when he was shouting down on the people. You come to address people who are going through this type of trauma, and you shout them down. I was hearing him that day, keep quiet, shut up. You don't do that.
Yeah, I still got the video even.
Yes, it was painful, Sandra. You see, this donkey attitude some of these people in office have, it's too bad. It's in years. I passed that to Kafa 2-3 weeks ago. I was telling my kids, Mickey and Lolo, look at where people died the other day. Because those water I said, or what you call that thing on the canal.
Yeah, hi, sir.
They thought it's a dry land. People from Ijesha were running towards the relay, and this thing is happening at Ikeja. On the express there, moved to knock so many people down. I want to thank that man to you, and thank you to Sandra and Chief Oboh.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for calling, Chris. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Good afternoon. What's your name, sir?
My name is Lumuyiwa from Aja.
Hello, Muliwa. Welcome.
The memory, I was in Abeson at the Baja. And for the fact that I was at the Baja, it was as if the bomb was right at our back. Now, I'm not comparing it now to those that are in the north right now. And what our leader needs to do now is that it is not easy to hear the sound of the bomb. So please let them help us with security. If I could be in the Baja and the bomb in Ikeja and it as if it was at my backyard, then the people in the north are feeling what they are feeling now. So please, are you a governor or president? Please, governor way and president way. Good afternoon.
Hello, Muliwa. Thanks for calling us. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, Sandra.
Yes.
Good
Welcome.
afternoon. Welcome.
This is Rotimi from Ijima, Lagos.
Go ahead, Rotimi.
Incidentally, I was on the convoy of the former governor of Lagos State, on that day.
Okay.
We had gone to the airport to receive the then President Obasanjo at the airport.
Okay.
So, as was normal with Governor Tinubu, he as protocol demand, he was always ready to receive the president there, but not to follow him to his farm in Ota, where his residence was. Because, again, that day, immediately we left the airport. We headed for Marina, where the governor was resident, because we had a meeting with the media. It was in the middle of that meeting that we started hearing explosions all over. And we're surrounded by security men with their walkie-talkies. We're hearing also. We thought it was a coup, actually. But again, immediately, one lesson that came out that day was of a good leader and a bad one. In the midst of that hosting that we're doing for the media, the governor was weeks away. We didn't know that he actually insisted that against the advice of his protocol and security that he was going to the NTA. They told him he headed for the NTA and made a broadcast, like I said, assuring Lagosians that it was not a coup, they should be rest assured, blah, blah, blah. But again, the other side of leadership, the courageous leadership that Governor Tinubu displays and what was the opposite that the former governor, the former president Obasanjo displayed at the cantonment. He shouting them down that he wasn't compelled to go in to even console the people. So it shows the kind of, we could have a good leader as displayed by Ashford Tinubu then, and the poor one displayed by President Obasanjo. Good afternoon. Again, in conclusion, ideally, if President Obasanjo had been a fantastic leader, he ought to have, as the president of that time, recommended to the National Assembly, which was controlled by the PDP, to compensate all those that were thousands that were dead. He never did anything about it. Good afternoon.
All right. Thank you,
Rotimi. Hello.
Hello.
Call us when you turn your radio off. Hello. Good afternoon.
Hello, Sandra. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. What's your name?
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Benjamin.
All right, Benjamin. Please go ahead.
Yeah, it's a very, very unfortunate that our leaders cannot help us whenever we need their help. On that same fateful day, I'm living at Bagada. I'm driving down to a solo with my junior brothers on top of that bridge. That blast that day affected the car I'm driving with. To tell you how level of that is. For all those areas that day, it seems that at least we are having an epilepsy in that area. So very, very unfortunate. And our leaders can be fast to console and to promise, and they will not be fast to fulfill their promise. If it's 18 years, look at the lady you are asking of how many years it is that time, and explaining what happened that time. All the whole leaders, the governors, the president, none of them have done something. They promised. Who knows whether everything they promised, whether they have signed money for it and swept it under the carpet. They cannot investigate this. EFCs are there. They cannot investigate all these things. They have failed us. So my condolences to all those who have lost their soul that day. May God help us. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin, for calling. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sandra.
Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Oboh.
Good afternoon. All right.
Yeah, it's just like yesterday that 18 years is gone. I remember that day very, very well because I was in Ojo Barak. Went for church service in Ojo Barak. And on our way coming back to Ikoyi, then we were staying in Ikoyi. And there was all sorts of panic along the way. For the fact that people that were running towards the relay direction, they actually knew what happened. That was how we were calm. We were able to drive down to Ikoyi that day. And 18 years down the line, listening to that girl, a 3-year-old girl, reminding Nigeria government what they promise. It's a promise. And the promise is a debt. That this country has owed so many people promises in the past without fulfilling it. This is not the first, they are not the first, not the last. But I wish that they will have a leader that will think of more of the people, not about themselves. Because the leaders that we have today, all they think are themselves. But it's also for those who lost their life then first a perfect peace. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you so much for calling us. Here's the last call we'll take. Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
What's your name, sir?
My name is Peter from Oshodi.
Peter, welcome. Go ahead.
Yes. Ikeja component is is opposite Oshodi.
Very true.
But I want to say that even this is 18 years now, and the Nigerian government have not learned a lesson. I've been how to pass information. That day, we were driving from all the way from Cotonou to Oshodi. We noticed this thing all the way from after Bagri. Then down to Oshodi, we couldn't meet anybody on the way. We get to the house. And this will take a lot of time. And Nigeria has not learned the lesson. That's what I want to say. Because if they are not a lesson, the way to pass information, people have not died on that canal. So we're not learning a lesson. We're just this thing that happened 8 years ago. If it happens today, the same story will come to her.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. If you just joined us, we had a big one today. It's the 18th anniversary of the armory blast at Ikeja cantonment. That's what we're talking about. We're looking back at that tragic day and getting your memories of what happened on January 27th, 2002. On the show with us is Aghogho Fumi, who is a volunteer with Innovative Youth Volunteers. And he thinks that in the next 2 years, he's going to get Nigerians to do something to help some of the survivors who are left. How many people are we talking about here, Aghogho?
About 74 families.
74 families. What are you looking to do for them? So get their children in school, right?
Some of them, some have different
skills,
different issues.
Okay.
You know, those who have skills, we try to help them to set up their businesses.
Okay.
Those who have home issues, we want to help them to resolve some of those problems so that they could get on with their normal lives. The souls
for 18 years, they haven't been able to recover.
They haven't.
How can Nigerians like myself help?
Well, from what we've been discussing with the chairman of the victim's family, we have been discussing with him to make sure he first of all gather those that have not been compensated, because some have actually been compensated. You know, but not
compensated
all of them.
With what?
The Lagos State government, like I said, pays some of 250,000 naira to about 80 people, families, you know, and the rest of the numbers, it was just promises. It never came.
We heard that the federal government gave 500,000 to families whose loved ones were confirmed dead. Is that true?
That's very true as well. Very true. As confirmed by Mr. Tunji Majakodumi, who is the chairman of the victim family. He confirmed it. Those that were able to... But another side to the story was that, when you're bringing people out of murky waters, the most important thing was to quickly, hurriedly bury some of these people. Not all of them were documented. Not all the families' victims actually remember that, my family is here. Some families are as far back as in Aja. Before they could come back to that location where they find their loved ones, some of them have been buried. So it wasn't a total documentary of all. It didn't capture all the people, but from Mr. Majakodumi, he was able to give us some of other list of those families who were never compensated. We don't have the list here, but as we meet some of this victims' family, we'll be able to get across to them.
Okay. Is there a plan to put pressure on the government? Because recently, like you mentioned, the National Assembly raised the issue of clearing out that canal. Is there a plan to put pressure on them to do that? Is there a plan to put pressure on government to compensate like they've promised to do?
That's the next phase. Well, first of all, we have to get our facts right. We have to document those that were compensated, those that were not, those that needed education, those that needed scholarship. So once we get all these facts, then we'll begin to approach the government so that by the time those help comes, it will go to the appropriate quarters.
People.
Yes.
Okay. How about desilting the canal? About clearing that canal?
Like I said, recently we have one of the members as of representative that spoke about it and is making the move. Recently, also the chairman of Ejigbo local government was also doing some relief clearing, but it wasn't because this is a huge project.
Yes,
it's a federal government project. So the local government might not be able to take absolute control or decision in such instances, but the federal government need to come to the heads of the local government and the state government, they need to take this as their challenge, because something happened and it took a number of lives away. And if the federal government is sitting back at this juncture, it's still very sad.
All right. Volunteer for Innovative Youth Volunteers at Ikeja for me. Thank you so much for talking to us today. And again, well done on the work that you're doing for these people who survived that blast.
Thank you very much.
Coming up is Checkpoint. Let's talk about another blast.
Yeah, the aftermath of the Abule explosion. Please don't go anywhere.
I am Sandra Ezekwesili.
Hard facts. We'll be right back.